Hello, and welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today we're going to be talking about some of the stuff that I'm going to be putting into my Mustang, or the Chevstang, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to try to build a motor and build the car, kind of, to go 8 seconds in the quarter mile. That is my goal, and that's what I would like to achieve with this car. I'd like to have a fairly reliable 8-second car. It might be kind of tough with the stock bottom end, but we're going to try and see how far we can really push a stock LS-based truck engine and see how far we can really push it. I know there's a lot of guys out there going 7s and whatever. Your brother and your cousin are going faster, but that's cool. I've never done anything this fast, so I'm going to try to do what I can with the smartest but most limited budget possible, if that makes sense. So I got a mess of engine parts over here. This is all parts from my 4.8 liter. I picked up a Gen 4. It was a 2007 Express fan with a 4.8 liter. So it has the little bit thicker rod, and the Gen 4 also has like bigger exhaust bolts factory and stuff like that. So if you guys are questioning if your motor is a Gen 3 or a Gen 4 rotted motor, the newer Gen 3 stuff technically has bigger exhaust bolts, and it still has the rear mounted cam sensor, which I wanted to stick with because it's just easier to find a cam and don't have to do DOD deletes and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, I got all my engine parts kind of laying over here. I labeled all the pistons and rods out of what cylinder they came out of, and I'm going to be putting them right back in that same hole, so hopefully I don't let the magic out too much. Some people say if you take the bottom end apart, you're letting the magic out. But I wanted to kind of go over it and just make sure that it was okay and kind of clean everything out as best as I can, because this motor had 440,000 miles on it. So I think it's best to just kind of take it apart and make sure everything is still good before proceeding to just send it. So this is just one of the rods and pistons that came out of the motor. All the rings and everything are in great shape yet. None of them are stuck, sludged up too bad, and they're all free. So I'll probably end up reusing the piston rings. The bearings are also still very good. There's a little bit of dirt on them, but for the most part, they are very clean. It looks like they were set up very well for this engine. So with it having 400,000 miles and they're still looking brand new still, that's a kind of indicator that I don't want to touch them, because hell, if I put a different bearing in it from a different company, the clearances might be a little bit tighter, they might be a little bit looser, and it might not work as good. That's kind of why I like to, if something has been good for this long, kind of just want to leave it the way it was instead of altering it with different parts on such a crucial component like the connecting rod to the crankshaft. Although the only concern I did have with these bearings that were in these rods is some of them were slightly stuck to the crank when I pulled the rods out, but like they still look really good and everything. I think just because it's been sitting for a long time and the motor was kind of dirty and sludgy and had some water in it, that's partially why they were stuck. But some of the bearings do fit kind of loose, not really loose, but they don't like really snap into the rod anymore. So that is a little bit of a concern to me. So part of me wants to buy new bearings and maybe rings. If I'm going to do bearings, I'll probably do piston rings too. But I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. I think it'll be okay the way it is, with the bearings just being a little bit like looser in there. I've never spun a bearing on a LS motor ever. And I've never had really any bearing failure on an LS that I've just kind of thrown the old bearings back in. I've never had any issues. But anyways, I wanted to thank everybody that kind of reached out to me about the last video. I kind of, at the end of it, I kind of talked about anxiety and the fact that I've been trying out Kratom to kind of help ease the anxiety a little bit. And thank you for everybody that reached out to me. I kind of had an overwhelming amount of messages from people that, thanking me for talking about it and whatever. And personally, guys, if you don't like that stuff, that's totally fine. I understand. But for me, it kind of helps me get through mental stuff by talking about it and, figuring stuff out, just like it does when you're building a motor. If you're trying to figure something out, or you're building a car and you're kind of stumped, talking about it and talking through it really does help and bring new ideas to the table and bring, you know, a solution in the end. But anyways, guys, I did get the whole cage welded into the car. It's pretty much good to go now. I just kind of went over and I spray painted over the welds and some of the stuff on the cage. It just sucks because it's like 45 degrees here tonight in Wisconsin, and it's a little bit too cold to paint. I also took out the windshield on the car. First time I've ever done that, but I did buy like a cheap tool from Harbor Freight. It's like a little razor blade with a handle on it that kind of goes around the seams of the windshield and allows you to get the old sealer off, and then I just kind of pop the windshield out so I could get at the top of the pipes here and weld the top of the pipes to the halo bar, and got all that done. The windshield in this car was already cracked before, so I wasn't really, you know, trying to save it or anything like that, so I figured, what the hell, I'll try to take it out myself. And honestly, if the windshield's already cracked, you can't really do any more damage than you already did, so fuck it. Another thing I actually did tonight on the car was I got this truck bed coating from Walmart. This stuff was $6, and it's a fairly big size can, and it's just like a, you know, a bed liner that you would spray on your bed of your truck. And I vacuumed out the floor of the car, and pretty much just vacuumed it. I did not sand it. I did not scrape up the, you know, residues or anything like that, and I just sprayed it. And this floor looks freaking awesome, guys, with that truck bed coating. And one can did this part of the floor pan and the other side. So I am going to continue doing that for the whole rest of the interior of the car, at least all the metal. And then I'm also going to make some gussets for the bottom plates down there, because they couldn't sit flat and I couldn't pound the floor down flat to get the plates to sit normal. So I'm going to build some gussets for the bottom plates. And then weld those in so that's a little bit more structurally sound. It's not going nowhere already. Like, this thing is like super solid. I feel like I could tip the car over and it's going to be totally good. But just for a little reassurance on the front, considering we have two pipes going to the front plates down there, I'd rather have a little bit more reinforcement up there as well. But we did get the dash bar in as well. That's just a pipe that connects the two A-pillar bars together and runs along the length of the car there. Unfortunately, with doing a lot of the cage stuff, I will not be able to run the factory dash, at least without cutting it to complete shit. I don't really care if I run the factory dash anyways, because I was not utilizing anything on the factory dash before. I actually had a homemade gauge cluster and shit in there anyways, so why not just build a whole custom dash? I think that'd be cool. I am going to end up just getting some probably sheet metal or sheet aluminum, and I'm going to build, you know, just off of this, come over the dash bar here, and then go down, and then I'll be able to have pretty much all my switches right on there, and then put gauges in front of the steering wheel. And that should be all good to go. So I'm excited to do that and get kind of my own taste and my own flavor of a dash built into this car. I think that'll be really sweet. But yeah, I'm just super stoked about how that bed liner looks. I even sprayed it in 45-degree weather and it wasn't running or nothing. So that's fucking sweet. But anyways, back to the main purpose of the video. I wanted to show you guys kind of what the parts I bought for the new motor to try to make it as fast and reliable as possible. So first thing I grabbed here that I bought is a package of ARP head studs. These are not the bolts. I know you can get ARP head bolts, or you can buy the studs. And I ended up going with the ARP head studs because personally, any LS motor I've ran above, like, you know, 14, 15 pounds of boost, they all push water. For some reason, on anything I've done, even this car, ever since I put it together, it's always pushed water into the overflow, and then it would kind of just drain back into the radiator naturally. But knowing what I know now with Hondas and stuff like that, I'm trying to put a little bit of that knowledge into the LS engine, and you can't even run fucking 5 pounds of boost on a Honda motor with the stock head bolts. So I think the ARP head studs with a mix of good gaskets, like the LS9 gaskets or whatever, they're like a thicker gasket. I'll do that with those, and then maybe get the heads resurfaced and everything, so make sure everything is flat and true, and we'll hopefully never have a head gasket failure on this setup. The next thing I actually bought a Melling high volume oil pump for the old Chev Stang motor. This is just a replacement oil pump. They give you a different spring and a different, I think that spring just is like a higher pressure spring. But this is a brand new Melling oil pump. and it has the high pressure spring upgrade. So we're going to be putting that in the car as well, because I actually had some low oil pressure issues with the last motor. It would run like 20 psi, and then, you know, sometimes it would run 60, and then sometimes it'd go to 20, and sometimes 60, whatever. I replaced the O-ring, I replaced all the lifters, I did pretty much everything I thought needed to get the oil pressure back up, and maybe the pump was just weak. But it is always a good idea to have a high pressure oil pump on any setup that you're going to be revving north of 7,000 RPM, which I plan on doing with this new engine. So I'm just taking a little bit of preventative maintenance to buy some of this stuff to, like I said, just try to make a stock bottom end live as long as I possibly can. So also with high revving engines and you know, engines that need a lot of you know, seat pressure on the valves, or no, spring pressure on the valves, I should say. I ended up getting a set of the Brian Tooley Racing 660 springs. So these are a dual valve spring, good for 660 thousandths of lift. You know, one spring inside of another. Definitely what I always do on Hondas. So another thing I'm taking from Hondas, kind of putting into this, along with help from other people like Sloppy Mechanics and a few others on that have reached out to me and actually kind of guided me through this build a little bit, or gave me recommendations on parts. Thank you to everybody that has reached out. But anyways, these are a really awesome valve spring kit for any LS engine. Gonna fucking ruin the retainers already. I ended up getting the titanium retainers. They offer a steel retainer, but titanium is a little bit stronger, so I ended up going with that. It's only about a $30 difference. So I ended up getting the titanium retainers. And they also give you these valve seats, or the guides, not the seats, but the guides. So this is what the spring's going to ride on the bottom. And then we have the valve stem seals. They give you brand new ones in the box. And they also give you new keepers. You know, these things are always flying around. When you're, you know, pounding the old valve springs out, you end up losing half the keepers. So it's kind of nice that they give you new ones. And they're a little bit stronger style, so that's good to go. Hopefully our cylinder heads will not have any valve floating issues with high boost or high RPM. And yeah, so I'm super stoked about the valve springs that I got for this engine. All right, and sticking to Valvetrain components, I actually ended up getting a set of Morel lifters. These are a drop-in style lifter. I honestly haven't even opened this box yet, but yeah, they're just like a drop-in style lifter. A little better design, a little better, I don't know what the fuck's in them, but they are better drop-in lifter. They're better than the LS7 lifters, I'm told. A lot of guys just switch to the LS7 lifters for high RPM, but these Morel ones supposedly can take a little bit more RPM than the LS7 ones. I think the LS7s are rated for like 7,000, and maybe these ones are 8,000 or some shit. I don't know exactly. I'm just talking, but yeah. Next order of business is the camshaft. This is the new cam that I got. This is a TIC Performance Stage 3 turbo camshaft. Hopefully this one will work good for our setup here with the big turbo that I got and all that stuff. I ended up going with this camshaft and ditching the sloppy Stage 2 camshaft because what I'm thinking partially could be an issue with the car and why it wouldn't really pick up any power is possibly the torque converter. I just don't think it is, and I don't want to change that until I fully know that the converter was limiting me. I don't think the converter was really a factor, but I do think the camshaft was partially a factor because the sloppy Stage 2 camshaft, although it is good for lower boost levels, I think when you start going north of like 14, 15 pounds of boost, it starts to become sort of a restriction. And what I've been learning with A21 Bravo's truck, Ryan, he has a Ford Ranger with a 6-liter and a sloppy Stage 2 camshaft. He has had extremely high intake air temperatures, and he kind of band-aided it with a methanol kit to kind of just spray methanol into it to kind of cool everything down. But it did not make sense to why his setup was running such high intake temps. And this one, I don't even fucking know what the intake temps were in the manifold because I had the intake sensor in the intercooler pipe, which is going to result a lower temperature than if you were to take the temperature at the manifold where Ryan was. But the theory that I'm kind of thinking, and what I've been talking to a couple other guys that do these motors quite a bit, is that the sloppy Stage 2 camshaft has too much overlap for you know, higher boost levels or something like that, because at higher boost, the boost can actually go right into the intake valve and go right out of the exhaust. So at high enough boost levels, you're actually just kind of blowing the boost right out of the exhaust, and you're not actually getting it into the combustion chamber where you're going to make the horsepower. And with the valves being open at the wrong time, the combustion is going to happen and blow hot air into the intake manifold, resulting in high intake air temperatures. So yeah, just kind of a thing that, you know, camshafts can be a little bit tricky, and if you don't have the right one, obviously it can cause issues like, you know, back pressure issues or intake, you know, exhaust reversion into the intake kind of thing. And like I said, it kind of makes sense because every setup that I've ran with that sloppy stage 2 cam, they quit making power right at about 15 pounds, at least from my experience. I know Matt has made good power above 15 pounds on the sloppy stage 2. I just know from experience, at least from the butt dyno on the stuff that I've done in the past, they make really good power up to 15 pounds. So if you go from 10 to 15, it's like a huge, you know, difference. And if you go from 15 to 20, it's always less of a difference. You know what I mean? It's not, it's something out there is choking it off. So that's kind of why I ditched it and why I'm going with this new Tick Performance cam. It has less overlap, so the valves are shut more often and, you know, open less. I don't even know how the fuck cam stuff works, so I'm just talking. Here is the camshaft information for anybody out there that's way smarter with this stuff than I am. Yeah. Forgot to mention with some of the Valvetrain stuff, I did get some more Valvetrain stuff. I didn't really want to buy these, but I did just because, you know, they're sort of cheap, and it's just cheap insurance, I suppose, to get them. I ended up getting Brian Tooley Racing chromoly push rods. These are a hardened push rod and should withstand the high valve spring pressure and the high RPM without bending. I know a lot of guys are running the stock ones with no issues, and honestly, I wouldn't care to just swap them out, you know, if I bent one. But like I said, I'm trying to make it as reliable as possible with the stock bottom end. So I ended up getting a set of those push rods, the chromoly ones, to hopefully alleviate any push rods from ever bending. I've never bent one in my life, but you know, now hopefully we really won't, or maybe we'll bend one with the chromoly ones and we throw stock ones in, it'd be fine. But we'll find out. Another thing that I wasn't really going to buy, but I did just because, you know, I felt like building a proper race engine, is I actually got a trunnion kit for the rocker arms. So these are a trunnion kit. This is pretty much just like the bearing that the rocker arm sits on and, you know, can pivot with. Supposedly you need these in higher RPM applications to keep the Valvetrain more stable and to, I don't know, keep it from fucking coming apart. Because, you know, if the rocker arm breaks or something like that, then, you know, you got a whole other mess of problems. So I ended up getting the Comp trunnion kit for the LS rocker arms, and we'll be throwing those in as well. And now on to the exciting stuff. So I ended up getting a different computer for the car as well, because if you guys don't know, I had a micro squirt in the car. It's an MS2, I think. And it was the newer style micro squirt, but I'd never really liked it, even from day one. The car really was kind of difficult to tune because it was a batch fire setup, which means it fires 4 injectors at once instead of firing each individual injector, which makes the car harder to tune at light loads like cruising and idle. So the car never really ran right cruising or idling down the road. Partially I'm blaming because of that micro squirt, because like I said, it wasn't really a batch fire setup, or not a, it was batch fire and it wasn't individual injector shit. So I ditched the micro squirt and ended up getting a EFI Source Gold box. So this is the Mega Squirt 3, and this is an awesome freaking ECU, guys. This was a little bit spendy, but I bought one just because I've kind of always wanted one ever since I had the micro squirt. I was like, I should have just freaking went with a gold box right away. Whatever. So this one has a lot more features, a lot more ins and outs that you can put into this. Has idle air control, so I can set up my frickin' idle. This car never idled when it was cold. I always had to hold my foot on the gas. Just little things like that that kind of, you know, were a nuisance. They weren't really like, you know, make or break type situations. You know, I could have dealt with it. It would have been fine. But just for my own good and to control a larger injector, I figured I should go with a different computer that does individual injector firing, because the micro squirt would have had a hard time controlling my new injectors, which are Snake Eater Performance 210 pound injectors, or 2200 cc. I got a set of 2200s for the Mustang as well. Those are in the house right now, but they're just injectors. You know what they look like. Showed you before. So yeah, we got the 2200s and the gold box. And this is, I got the plug and play MS3 because this harness, way nicer than anything I would build. So yeah, I ended up getting the harness and everything with the kit. Just kind of wanted to make it look a little bit better, and you know, plug and play is a little bit more fun to deal with, I suppose. I already built my own harness for the micro. I built that whole harness, and I would do it again, but you know, just got a little bit lazy this time and said, you know what, I'm just going to buy a plug and play kit. So I bought the plug and play Mega Squirt 3 gold box. And the end all be all. This is, well, I can't even fucking lift it with one hand. Couldn't even lift this with one hand, so I had to put the camera down. But anyways, this is my new turbocharger that we're going to be installing onto this 4.8. This is, of course, a VS Racing 80 millimeter turbo. But the difference with this 80 millimeter compared to my old 80 millimeter is my old 80 had a 75 millimeter exhaust wheel, just like the 7875 that came off of it. So that's another reason why the car kind of didn't pick up any power at the track with the turbo swap. I pushed the shit out of it and it went like a tenth faster, so with the bigger turbo. So the turbo, I think, was partially another limit because the exhaust wheel was a bit small, and in combination with all the other stuff like the camshaft and the being out of fuel injector and 100 other things why I didn't pick up power. I think the turbo had a little bit to do with it as well. So this is Billet 80 millimeter from VS Racing, and it is his 9688 exhaust wheel. So this exhaust wheel is ginormous compared to my old one. Has pretty much the same exhaust outlet and all that, but another thing that you may notice is that it is a V-band entry into the turbo instead of like a T4 or T6 flange. It is a V-band entry. So that is awesome. Everything on the turbo is a V-band, including the compressor outlet and exhaust outlet, as well as the clocking of the compressor and turbine housings is all V-banded. This is a super slick turbo. I'm very excited to run this thing and see how much of a difference all this stuff is going to make, because I feel like this car is going to be completely unmanageable on the street, which is a good thing. So we might have to throw it out on the ice with studded tires, see how it hooks up out there. So anyways, guys, if you need a turbo from VS Racing, you can order through me. Any turbo that you may need, I may not have all of them on the website, but if you do need a specific turbocharger, you can always email me at huntertuned@gmail.com, and I can get you a turbocharger. And if you order them through me, you not only are helping VS Racing, but you are helping Hunter Tuned as well, because I do make a small chunk of profit when I sell you guys a turbo, which greatly helps me out and helps me, you know, continue doing stuff like this and helps build cars and keeps content flowing for you guys. Because if I can't buy parts for cars and I can't keep building cars and stuff like that, I can't really make videos for you guys. You know, I mean, I could, but it wouldn't be as interesting, and you guys probably wouldn't learn as much. But last thing I did not talk about, but on the last track day, I ended up switching my battery out to an Access Power. This is an Access Power battery that I got used from a buddy, and I ended up throwing that battery in because the old one that was in here would start the car most of the time, but if you caught it on a bad time, the battery would be low enough to where it would just click and it would not actually turn the car over, or it would crank really slow. And I tell you what, guys, I threw that frickin' excess power battery in this thing, and this thing cranks so damn fast. It's crazy. That battery is a beast. So anyways, guys, look forward to another video coming soon. I'm going to be picking up my parts from Buddy. He's actually putting them in a hot tank for me, and we're getting everything cleaned out. And hopefully I'll have the block and the heads back within the next day, and I can start assembling all these parts, putting the heads together, putting the block together, and all that stuff. So you guys can definitely look forward to some of that content coming soon. And then once the motor's built, we can throw everything back into the car and get to making this thing run. But thanks for watching this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Not a whole lot of action, but a whole lot of knowledge, hopefully, for a lot of people out there wondering what the new setup is going to be. Now you know. And yeah, I can't wait to get this car on the road, guys. This thing is going to be a fucking animal. This thing is probably going to frickin' just be insane. I'm excited. Hit the like button if you want to see this thing go 8's, because that's my goal. I want to go 8 seconds, and I think I'll be good. I don't know. 1 year from today, Hunter says, I'm going 7's. Fuck all this. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe, comment, let me know what you guys think of today's video, and we will see you in the next one. Have a good day.